Hello and good evening. Welcome to the Beyeler Foundation, Fondation Beyeler. Welcome to our short walk through our collection display, which has the wonderful name, Der Löwe hat Hunger, the lion is hungry. Why the lion is hungry, we will see later. We will do a short insight, and I'd like to ask you to forgive my accent. My English is not really wonderful. It's more Lufthansa English, but I try, and perhaps by the time I'm getting better. Anyway, we did this collection show because we had a big gap between our Hopper show, which ended in September, and the upcoming show, which starts next week or 10 days, which is dedicated to the both wonderful sculptors Rodin and Arp. So we thought we should show as many masterworks from our collection as we can, and there we are. And the first room is dedicated to two really very important masters of modern art, Kandinsky and Klee. And it's actually, strangely enough, the first time that they meet in our museum. They had been friends, they were neighbors at the Bauhaus in Dessau, and inspired each other. Of course, there was a lot of competition between both of them, but there was a lot of mutual respect for each other, for their work. And it's difficult to combine them in our collection because we have relatively early works by Kandinsky, like that one, which was done in 1910. It's called Improvisation number 10, done in 1910, and this one, which is called Fuga or Fugue, which was done in 1914. So at the height of the development of abstract art in Kandinsky's oeuvre. And by contrast, we have, Ernst Beyeler collected late work by Klee. And so we have here works from the last years of Klee's work, around 1939, 1940. But I thought that the combination of this work with that work is quite striking, because there's sort of the lines, these open lines, which sort of indicate a kind of gesture, a gesture painting. It's not gestural at all because it's really, it looks very free, but it's really constructed and sort of built up. That corresponds very nicely to this semi-figurative work over here, which sort of transforms painting in science, in sort of, yeah, you say science, and which actually remind you of figures. You know, these two paintings, even that sort of very abstract painting, they two sort of walk on the fine line between figuration and abstraction, and they are very important artists for modern art. When you think of modern art as a development from figuration to abstraction, and each of them found his way to work with this idea, which is very much at the core of, for example, ideas like building a museum of modern art in New York. For example, Alfred Barr had this idea of a very sort of consecutive development of art, which moves from figuration to abstraction. And that lies actually at the core of our collection and of many other museums. And should keep in mind that A close friend of Ernst Beyeler was Bill Rubin, the famous director of painting and sculpture at the Museum of Modern Art, and that Ernst Beyeler was very much influenced by his ideas, but also by ideas written down by Alfred Barr, whom you, of course, personally knew very well. The second room is dedicated to our wonderful collection of masterworks, of late masterworks by Henri Matisse, the famous papier découpé, the paper cutouts. We have even one more, which is in storage here because it didn't fit in actually. But we have these two famous nude bleu, the blue nudes. This is number one, very famous, iconic piece of the collection. And we have the frog over here, the blue nude on yellow ground. Henri Matisse did these works during a period of his life when his ability to paint or to move was very limited, because he actually had a very long period of fighting cancer, which actually lasted from the early 40s to his death in 1954. And at the end of his life, after, say, 1947 or so, he concentrated solely on making cutouts. And because in his view, it was not only a good way to continue working, because he could do it, he was able to do it. It was also his sort of culmination of his artistic thoughts about the ideal synthesis of doing sculpture and painting, or working three-dimensional and working two-dimensional. So the idea of having paper painted and cutting it out very quickly and then arrange it on paper was very important for him. It was done with the help of many helpers, female helpers, who had to be there day and night, and just because he had problems to sleep, and it was really he was really suffering, and he just wanted to sort of defy death by doing this. And this wonderful Accord famous painting, or famous work, we even have the lines, the charcoal lines, which he drew with the charcoal put on a large stick. These are the things he could do when he could stand, and then he would command his helpers to arrange things and fix it with needles. We even have some needle holes here. And sort of make these big decorations, decoration being the pinnacle of his art, what he wanted to do. He wanted to do the perfect decoration. And these things are quite fragile. We're not showing them very often because the light eats paper, unfortunately. So we have to be very careful about these works. I contrasted Henri Matisse, the colors of Henri Matisse, the playfulness, the positivity, if you like, with the famous works from Alberto Giacometti's Chase Manhattan Plaza. The idea to define a space in New York by exhibiting or installing figures, walking men, one or two women, concentrated here on one woman, and a hat. The walking man has to walk towards the woman, but he just passes by, so they never meet. That's the idea. That's always when Giacometti did these definitions of space, which he did quite often actually. He made it that if these figures would move, they would never meet, sort of showing some alienation in space. It's quite complicated, but always fascinating. Giacometti sort of wanted to show the very essential of a figure, of movement, of existence, and that lies at the core of this idea of making these figures always meager, sort of concentrating them to the very limits of their existence. Giacometti thought that working was always failure, and the reason for continuing to work was to sort of fail on a higher level. So these works which we see here are all essays, if you like. They are models for higher models of failure. So he was a very self-conscious person, and never was really content with what he did. But it's an interesting thought, because what he did is create a wonderful, very concentrated atmosphere, and puts the viewer in relation to works of art, to these figures, and lets the viewer think about dimensions. I mean, if you look at this smaller woman, standing woman here, which not really belongs to the original group, then you have to keep in mind that this woman might be actually bigger than this one, because you see it from further afar. And these thoughts are extremely important for Giacometti. And I leave it here for the moment. Perhaps in another online tour, I could come back to that and perhaps only concentrate on his work, because it's really interesting to get more involved in his thinking and Giacometti's thinking has much to do with dimensions and how he perceives the world and how the world sort of relates to the viewer. The next room is dedicated to two works. One work is called Autos Mobile by Alexander Calder, the famous inventor of mobiles, a wonderful sculptor. It's a great work with vertical hanging and horizontal hanging elements. The horizontal elements are colorful. The vertical hanging elements are silvery aluminum pieces. It slightly moves by the air condition, of course, but it's a very poetic thing. Because the way you look at it always changes, and it's I think, don't want to sort of be too, don't want to praise myself too much, but I think the combination of these leaves, if you like, and with the painting in the background, it's very telling. Of course, Calder and Henri Rousseau don't have much to do with each other. They've never met, and there's no direct relation as far as I know. But I think it works very well, and of course it works very well in the combination of nature, which you see here as image, and the nature outside the park, which of course during the night you don't see, but during the day. So when you come in person during your next visit. Henri Rousseau's famous painting, it's an iconic work in the collection, is called Le lion ayant faim se jette sur l'antelope. From this comes the title of the show, The Lion is Hungry. The lion has hunger, or is hungry, and jumps on the antelope, and the original title is much longer. I can't really say it in English now. It's the lion is hungry, and he sort of jumps on the antelope, and other animals wait to get their share, and there's this very nervous gepard, or how do you say, panther? You know what I mean. And there's this strange creature here. Not quite clear what it means. Anyway, the original title is extremely long, and it ends with the poor animal has a tear in its eyes, sunset. And all this title and the whole attitude of this painting, the big format is a sort of perhaps ironic commentary to a long tradition of official history and animal painting, and this 19th century idea of the survival of the fittest, and the idea that the civilized people in mostly European or Northern American European influenced cities are meeting the wild in a distance, and Henri Rousseau is sort of playing with this idea of perspective, which he doesn't have, which he sort of does in a different way, and he questions about this idea of history painting, which was very, very important for the 19th century, and which is largely forgotten. And he became, by doing things like that, a real groundbreaker or an icebreaker for modern art, which is fascinating. And the modern artists around Picasso, mainly around Picasso, acknowledged this and celebrated him. Late in life, he became quite famous. Of course, when he began painting like that, he was rejected, like many other painters. Today, it's really an eye-opener on the way to cubism or to abstract art, because it plays with tradition, but it leaves tradition at the same time, and that's always fascinating to see. There's a lot of truth about lions in this painting, by the way, because when lions attack in the wilderness, then they are always under stress, because there are other animals really waiting to get their share, or to fight the lions off. And we had the director of the local zoo here to discuss this painting, which was quite fascinating. Anyway, we move on to Louise Bourgeois, an artist who's very dear to my heart. Louise Bourgeois, one of the most famous artists and female artists of the 20th century, 20th and 21st century. She is really the link between modern art and contemporary art. She had abstract beginnings, but she always put a story or meaning in these abstract works. We have here relatively early works from the 50s, from a series which she called Personage, abstract works, but they are personages. They are persons who are frail and need to be protected. They just stick in the floor and sort of try to relate to each other. And then we have later work. We have a famous spider. Louise Bourgeois is the artist who was interested in spiders, because the spiders are man could put it like that, they are killers which heal, or who heals, because if you destroy the spider's net, the spider will always come and repair it. And that has a lot to do with Louise Bourgeois' idea of being an artist, or Louise Bourgeois' artist, because she came from a family of tapestry restorers, so there's a lot of her parents, especially her mother, in it. And in saying this, I should add that there's a lot of Louise Bourgeois in it. She was she had this enormous network in art, and she could destroy and repair. The idea of destroying and repairing and doing a network at the same time, or doing this spider's net is a key to understanding her art, I think. One of the keys. It's a very complex work of art, and I don't think I have done justice to it in these few seconds I was just talking about it. Anyway, Louise Bourgeois was married to a famous art historian called Robert Goldwater, who was a big networker in the New York art scene. And when she came from Paris, where she knew everybody, when she came from Paris to New York, with him she was immediately part of this New York art scene. So she personally knew more or less all the abstract expressionists, and she in her work relates to abstract expressionists in a way, and by bringing meaning to her work, to her sculptures, I think she surpasses abstract expressionism in a very fascinating way. Anyway, we have a room dedicated to some works by key masters of abstract expressionism, especially Willem de Kooning, Clifford Still, Joan Mitchell. Joan Mitchell, a female artist, one of them, with Lee Krasner, perhaps the most important abstract expressionist, and she really shows what it means to do action painting, if you like, if you call it like that, to paint by gestures and sort of put your emotions in your movement and make it shown on the canvas. It's a fascinating work, which is unfortunately alone, but it's fortunate that we have it for this time and can show it, and it's very, very nice to sort of having it in contrast to our work by St. Francis around the world, which is from the Beyeler collection. The two de Koonis show two different stages in his life and work. One painting is done in 1977, very significant time in his oeuvre. The other one is done in the early 80s, I think 1982. And it's interesting to see how organized this gestural paint, this sort of seemingly wild painting really is. How he even repeats motifs in his paintings, like in this work, like this motif, which sort of reappears here, or how he puts paint on the brushes, sort of, in order to make these brush strokes. If you make a brush stroke like this, then you have to organize how the paint, how you apply the paint on the painting, and so on. That is, it's a very complicated but very thoughtful, very even intellectual act to do such a gesture, so sort of make this image of action in painting. And then in his later work, he reduces this and paints over, sort of covers, for example, these yellow zones by white, and it becomes calmer and perhaps more organized. But for me, it's a bit ghostly in a very positive sense. It's sort of it's as if he refers to his earlier work, and he's not vanishing, but perhaps he is. One could put it like that. Perhaps he's actually concentrating more. I mean, in fact, he had, and that was perhaps already felt. He had these mental problems. Of course, one shouldn't sort of relate the work by artists. One shouldn't relate this to their stage of health, but perhaps it helps to understand why this is so fascinating, that development from, it's only very few years, it's only 5 years between these two paintings. It becomes more an apparition. So this very late body of work by de Kooning is for me is really fascinating. Anyway, one should perhaps say about Clifford Still, who reinvented the idea of the sublime in painting, and the sublime is a very important term in 18th century landscape painting, and he's not doing landscapes, but he's by doing these rock-like or sort of deep valley-like structures and zones of paint. He refers to an idea of 18th century depiction of wilderness in a. I'm a bit lost of words now. My English is not really good enough to say this, but he's certainly someone who is relating modern art on this idea of abstract expressionism or abstract painting to a very long tradition of painting theory, which really comes from the 18th century, and that is one of the aspects which are quite fascinating about Clifford Still and his work. Anyway, now the idea was to do artist rooms or thematic rooms and sort of not do a chronological hanging also. And now we sort of go back in time, but that has its reason because Willem de Kooning, over here, was a big admirer of Evert Hopper. And we have as last remain of the rest of the last remains of the Hopper exhibition, which we had this summer. We have this wonderful Cape Ann granite painting from 1928. As I say, Bill de Kooning was a big admirer of Hopper. I don't know what Hopper really thought about Willem de Kooning. He didn't say much, but perhaps it's actually better that we don't hear what he would have said. Anyway, that's wonderful in this museum to make these connections between paintings, like this painting here connects to this painting here, and as we never should give too many answers in exhibitions and raise more questions, it raises a question. Is this possible, or does it work, or does it not work? I think it does work quite well, and it works by contrast, perhaps. We put this really wonderful long-term loan, one can say, in relation to late works by Vincent van Gogh, Vincent van Gogh, which we have in our collection. There's a long-term loan as well. Especially this work here is really fascinating. Last weeks, last months of Van Gogh's existence. He's in Auvers-sur-Oise, and there's a field, a wheat field, and the wind is blowing, and one sees these blue cornflowers, and the wind is sort of seems to sort of blow over, and the plants seem to dematerialize in paint and connect with the stormy heaven. It's interesting, and it's interesting that the composition of these two paintings, this one and the one by Hopper, seem to be quite related. What Hopper always was interested in, but Van Gogh was less interested in, is showing shadows. You know, there is perhaps surrealism brought back shadows, and Hopper might relate to this. It's again something one could think about a lot. You hear in the background, you hear these funny noises, which are not really funny, but which are a sound sculpture, which sort of is at the end of our short walk through. This is a work by Susan Philipsz. Susan Philipsz is a Scottish artist, a Scottish contemporary. She's very much alive. And the work is called 7 Tears. You see these seven players. I forgot how to call these works. It's not a CD player, and of course not. It's a long disc player. These disc players. I mean, we hardly remember them, and each of them just plays one tone of a sequence of a musical sequence of tunes, one tune of a musical sequence of tunes, which is the beginning sequence of a work by John Dowland, who was a contemporary of Shakespeare, which is called Seven Tears. John Dowland's Seven Tears is a very important piece of music in late Renaissance, early Baroque English society, court society. And it relates to the many different ways of shedding tears. Like there are crocodile tears, and there are the tears of joy, and there's the tears of despair, and so on. And that all relates to the melancholy, in my view, to the general melancholy of the artist. The artist is basically melancholic, and melancholy is at the beginning of great art. So it's an interesting work, and it sort of it gives a new perspective. These kind of works to our collection, which is, as you know, still mainly a collection of modern art. Ernst Beyer's collection was a collection of modern art, and these contemporary works sort of open up and relate. This work especially relates interestingly to older art, and we always try to sort of make a mixture of classical, modern art, and contemporary art, and you will see it the next few days, because I already mentioned the new exhibition we put on show dedicated to Rodin and art, a sculpture show, early modernist and a very important protagonist of modernism, Auguste Rodin and Jean Arp. But we have a very spectacular a new sculpture, The Garden, which is called Snowman by Fischli and Weiss, which will open to the public more or less. It's not really an opening, you will see it. It's a snowman in the garden. The snowman, as snowman, will stay with us for 1 year, which is quite fascinating and relates to climate questions. Is of course fun to look at, and that's actually the reason, and I was asked to say this especially, that's the reason why next weekend is free entrance to the museum, just in celebration of Fischli Weiss Snowman. And then on December 13, we opened the big Auguste Rodin Jean Arp show, which brings us through this winter, and this winter hopefully will bring back some what we try to call normality. Now we have questions. There are actually two questions. How did I combine artists in the room? It's our idea is that we always change our collection, our collection display, that we always do new meetings between different artists, and so I'm quite convinced that any combination basically works. On the other hand, you develop a feeling of what looks good or not. It's an aesthetic decision you do, and I'm always led not so much by scholarly thinking about art history. I always try to relate to the idea of creating a good visitor experience. So, as I say, sometimes it's a combination of a work by Willem de Kooning and Edward Hopper more telling than having a room only dedicated to Willem de Kooning. And that's perhaps what I can say about this question. The other one was my favorite work. in the collection, in the contemporary collection, well, that changes, of course, all the time. I'm a very big fan of the work by Louise Bourgeois. I met the artist. I mean, she passed away a couple of years ago. And is she still contemporary? That's a good question. I am a big fan of the spider, actually. I would think that the spider hanging on the wall is a real masterwork and a masterpiece, which is, again, unfortunately, a long-term loan. But fortunately enough, we have it for this time, and we may perhaps keep it a little longer. So I think that Susan Philipsz' work is really important because she is adding new dimensions to the traditional idea of art. I mean, art is not only painting, it's not only sculpture, it's not only installations. It can be sound as well, and it's a very complex, very fascinating work, which is worth to be thought about quite a lot, especially if you keep in mind that the movement of these LPs relates to the movement of the finger on the glass, which was filled with water, and that is the way how she creates these tunes. So I think I'm quite fascinated by this work, and it gives me a lot to think about it. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed our tour, and there's another question. Oh yeah. Yes. How did we combine conservation and the exhibition of an artwork related to the Matisse room? Well, conservation is a big issue in the museum. We keep these works, but we keep them for further generations. That's the idea. So we have a conservation department, and indeed we worked a lot on conserving the works by Henri Matisse. We even had a big project related to Archon, this very big work by Matisse, which didn't mean that we sort of reworked it. We did a lot of research to understand the work in order to react to its needs, because every work of art has its special needs, in order to keep it for a little longer. That's what conservation basically means. It's not restoring or sort of repainting or recutting or things like that. It's more bringing the works in a state which makes it possible that they stay with us very much longer. Any more questions? Or I'm not alone. I mean, we are only 3 people here. That is the reason why I'm not wearing a mask, and you wouldn't understand me anyway. And so I think that was it. Thanks for watching, and please remember that despite all the online things we do now, and which are really helpful, the real thing is really the real thing. And so in having said this, I just hope that you will come back soon, and if you haven't seen this museum, think of it, and if you pass by Basel, if you pass by Switzerland, we'll be happy to show you our collection if you would like to spend an hour or 2 in our park and garden after the crisis. You're very welcome. Good night and good luck, and stay healthy, and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.